Oh, we appreciate you, man, for bringing us on every single week here on The Voice, 17104 Harrisburg. I'm Dr. Nate Gadsden, and this is the Writer's Wordshop. And I'm so glad to have the ability to speak to you and bring you some fine poets in the area, as well as just writers, authors, the people who love the written word, the spoken word. And tonight, of course, is no exception. Whoever comes on will be a guest. And we're going to talk about a very special topic tonight. And there's been a whole lot of conversation about that brawl that took place in Montgomery, Alabama. And, it's a lot of parodies on Facebook and other social media. Some of it's just absolutely hilarious. But we're going to talk about all the dimensions of that at the top of the show and what it means and why it happened and, why it meant so much to so many people, especially in the African-American community. And so anyhow, that's one of the topics tonight. To do that, we're hoping to have on Dr. Maurice Henderson out of Philadelphia. He has been a big friend of the Writers' Workshop for years and a big friend of a lot of writers, African-American writers in general. He has a nationwide reach in terms of his work that he does with authors and poets in particular. And so anyhow, we're hoping to have Dr. Maurice Henderson come on. I'm trying to think of the name of his network. I forget exactly what he calls it, but let's just simply say the African-American Writers Network, which I know that's not it, but you get the point. So anyhow, and I hope that whatever you're doing tonight, it is productive and that you had yourself a good week. And if there was some challenges in there, I hope that those challenges were the kind of challenges that, gave you pause, but also gave you time to reflect and also made you stronger. In the long run, it said if it doesn't destroy you, it makes you stronger. And I think that a lot of times we don't welcome these challenges for obvious reasons, but then after we get through them, after God has guided us through those things, we realize, that we've gotten a little bit wiser, a little bit stronger. Maybe we're able to help somebody along the way that we never anticipated helping. So, sometimes challenges wake us up a little bit, right? Yeah, But also we, want to honor those writers out there. I have this wonderful book, and I'm going to share some poetry tonight. I haven't really rehearsed anything. It's called African American Poetry, 250 Years of Struggle and Song, okay? And Kenneth Young, okay? Kenneth Young, as you can see, is the editor. And this is the Library of America. Let me see, this is Library of America Anthology, okay? African American Poetry, 250 Years of Struggle and Song. So I'm going to literally go through this book tonight and share some of the great poetry from some of the great writers that have helped me, and I'm sure helped many of us, understand the struggle and celebrate our victories. For example, I'm looking at Haki Mahabuti. Donnell Lee was his name, and he changed it to Haki Mahabuti. For what I remember of him, he's out of Chicago, Illinois. He's a scholar, tremendous poet. He was a big voice back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. And I remember he was here in Harrisburg, and I want to thank Dave Waters and his wife, Joyce. They had a Black bookstore, and they used to bring in a lot of great writers and people. And so I never forget Haki Mahabuti was here, and he was out in the Harrisburg East Mall at the time. And he was standing there with his books and everything. And I watched so many people walk past him who didn't know who he was. And I remember thinking to myself, boy, this is a tragedy when we have these outstanding, authors. And this guy was a giant in terms of the African-American literary field, because he produced so many great writers who, were African-American poets and writers. And he created Third World Press so that our people would have, the ability to be published, because a lot of times our writers were not being published by these major publishing houses. But Haki Mahabuti out of Chicago created Third World Press. And just really happy to know this brother and to see him. Here's a piece, and let me see. I'm going to read this, and this is, some stuff from like I said, from the 60s, 70s, and how we used to do it. And this one is called "But He Was Cool," or "He Even Stopped for Green Lights." And that's the subtitle of the poem. But he was cool, or he even stopped for green lights. It says, super cool, ultra black, a tan purple, had a beautiful shade. He had a double natural that would put the sisters to shame. His dashikis were tailor-made and his beads were imported seashells from some black country I never heard of. He was triple hip. His tikis were hand-carved out of ivory and came express from the motherland. He would greet you in Swahili and say, goodbye in Yoruba. Woo, Jim. He bees cool and till intelligent. Cool, so cool that he was uncooled by other, and he used the word niggers, cool. Cool, ultra cool was bok cool, icebox cool, so cool, cold, cool. His wine didn't have to be cool. Him was air conditioned cool, real cool, made me cool. And ain't that cool? Cool, so cool. Him nicknamed refrigerator. Cool, so cool. He didn't know after Detroit, Newark, Chicago, and we had to hip cool, super cool, real cool, that to be black is to be very hot. That's why I'm called, but he was cool. And back in the day, remember how brothers, some of you are old enough to remember how brothers used to stroll. They had that stroll, that bop, that walk, super cool. And it was, it was fashionable, it was hip, it was crazy, but it was cool, right? And so he captured all that in his poem called But He Was Cool. And there's another piece he has here that says, don't cry, scream. And again, this is Haki Mahabuti. His, name was Don L. Lee, and he changed it to Haki Mahabuti. It says, don't cry, scream for John Coltrane from a black poet in a basement apartment, crying dry tears of, quote, you ain't gone, end quote. It says, into the 60s, a train came out of the 50s with a golden boxcar riding the rails of Novation, blowing and melodies, screeching, screaming, blasting, driving some away. Those paper readers who thought manhood was something innate. Bring others in, the few who didn't believe that the world existed around established whiteness and Leonard Bernstein. Music that ached, murdered our minds. We reborn, born into a neurotic aberration. And suddenly you envy the blind man. You know that he will hear what you'll never see. Your music is like my head, nappy black, a good nasty feel with tangled songs of we, sing and loud high with feeling a people playing the sound of me when I combed at it. I cried for Billie Holiday, the blues, we ain't blue. The blues exhibited illusions of manhood destroyed by you. Ascension into screaming, sing loud and long with feeling, we ain't blue, we are black. We ain't blue, we are black. All the blues did was make me cry. Soul Train, gone on a trip. He left man images. He was a lifestyle of man makers and annihilators of attached case carriers. Train done went, got his hat, and left me one. New brother, I didn't cry. I just screamed and screamed. We were done, gone, brother. Sing loud and high, feeling, letting your voice break. It hurts grown babies dying, born, done. Caught me a train, steel wheels broken by popsicle sticks. I went out and tried to buy a nickel bag with my standard oil card. Blondes had more fun with snagna tooth niggas who saved pennies and pop bottles for weekends to play Negro and other filthy inventions, bebopping to James Brown's Cold Sweat. These Negroes didn't sweat. They perspired when the blonde's dye came out. I ran, she did too, with his pennies, pop bottles, and his mind. Tune in next week, same time, same station, for anti-self in one lesson. To the Negro Calcius, who did Tarkovsky and the Beatles and live in split level homes and had split level minds, and babies who committed to act of love with their clothes on, who hid in the bathroom to read Jet Mag who didn't read the Chicago Defender because of the misspelled words and has shelves of books by Europeans on display untouched who hid their little Richard and Lightning at Slim Records and they asked, John who? Instant hate. They didn't know any better. Brother, they were too busy getting into debt, expressing humanity and taking off color. Scream, we, T, scream, and I scream this, we scream,
Right.
and impoverished with feeling. The all-phase heard you and were wiped out. Spaced, one clown asked me during my favorite things, if you were practicing, I fired on the blank and said, I'm practicing. Nah, brother, I didn't cry. I got high on my thoughts. They kept coming back to destroy me. And that blind man, I don't envy him anymore. I can see his ear, and hear his heard through my pores. I can see by me. It was truth you gave, like a dirty blank. It had to come. Can you scream, brother? Can you scream, brother? Very soft. I hear you. I hear you. And the gods will too. And Ben, that's a piece called Don't Cry, Scream by Haki Mahabuti. Welcome. And it sounds like that was Brother Maurice. Is that you? Okay, 2 guests on by phone, sir. Okay, real good. Hey, this is Nate Gadsden. And who's on the phone? You can unmute yourself. All right. Do you have control of the muter today, Brother Chris?
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, this
Can
is
you hear
Nate.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Right. Yeah. So I'm hoping that our folks, so I have a nation conscious rap group called Conscious Mind. I'm hoping that they will come on. Let me
stop you for a minute there, Brother Maurice. We do have 2 people on the line, you and someone else. Who else were you expecting?
Andre and Shafiq.
Okay. Are they on? Because it said they were muted. If you can unmute yourselves, I'd appreciate that.
No, so can you tell them how to unmute themselves? Because so I'm on the phone. It tells me hit *6.
Yeah. So
yeah, Maurice, this is Dre. I'm on. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Good. I can hear you.
Yeah,
Welcome.
Shafiq is not on. How you doing, Brother Gadsden?
Very good, man. Very good. I'm glad.
Thank you for the reading of those poetries too. I appreciate
that. Thank you. I need to do a better job.
Right. So, brother. So, it's interesting. A while ago, you asked me about self-care, and thank you for the call. I realize that that's really, really important. Number one. So I have Andre on the line. So he's with one of the nation conscious rap groups that was put on the map by Bob Law.
Okay.
And he, so he did things about the veterans, Malcolm X. He's also a public health aficionado. And so he comes to you from North Carolina. And so the major thing is that I was talking to some folks today, and they were at the National Medical Association, and they did nothing about restorative justice. And so they did say to me that in the future they want to come on the show because there are restorative justice cities that we need to look at, at a different kind of reason. So now we have to look at, like, how do you treat your trauma? And I just found out that Trump was in Montgomery, Alabama. Before this incident happened. And he
was there before or during?
No, before.
Okay.
And then there was a conference going on called Sound Minds, and they asked how it is that we deal with those who are triggered by bipolar and schizophrenia. And so I'm still trying to look at how does that happen and how do you do self-care. And so we do understand that Trump can trigger a lot of things like he did at the Capitol.
Absolutely.
And then,
Absolutely.
so in our studies, looking at restorative justice, looking at how it is that we can put a lot of things together. But Andre did a song years ago called Brainwash. Andre, can you talk a little bit about what brainwash means?
Yes, brother Henderson. Brainwash was pretty much a depiction of how we have became so, I guess, from the chains on our brains that, we're no longer physically slaves or physically, enslaved, but our brains are still enslaved. So brainwash was like, let's put everybody's brain into a washing machine and deprogram them and make them come out to see that they cannot no longer have their brains locked up, because you're free physically, but your brains are locked up. So brainwash was pretty much a depiction of how we need to come together as African Americans from all parts of the diaspora and make sure that our minds are still not chained.
Yeah, that cut you off there, I'm sorry, but it sounded like some of the work that Naeem Akbar was doing back in the day, talking about the same kinds of things, change. Yeah, very powerful. Do you have a a sample of it, or you want to tell us a little bit about it? Or?
Okay, right. So we tried to drop some of it to you. Andre, can you do like a tidbit of it?
Yeah, I could probably just run it. I try to do it on the spoken word side versus I'm thinking about the music in my mind as I'm talking about it.
Good.
The hook goes something like,
before you start, brother, let me just say this, that we do have a brother that's really a master at a lot of stuff. If you tell him about it, he might be able to actually find it. That's brother Chris Thomas is on, and he's the one that owns the station and everything. But I've noticed that Chris is able to pull things up, grab things, So if you want,
Maurice, if you could send him the song, you can hear the song if it's already on MP3.
Right, Andre, brothers, I want y'all to understand. I'm preparing to go to Chicago. So what I did, I emailed that to the brother. But right now, before we even do that, just drop some lines for us.
All right,
Maurice, do me a favor, brother. Let me run the show. All right, we're good. And then I'll get with I'm serious, and I'll get with brother Chris, if you have that, and then I would love to hear it. But if we can do it that way, okay, I would like to do that. So first off, can you send it to brother Chris?
I can't.
No, I'm talking to the brother who owns it, brother Andre. Can you send it to Chris?
Yeah, I could shoot it to him. I'm on my what's your name, my Gmail right now. Let me see here.
Yeah, let's give it some play if we can. I would love to hear that.
No problem. Let me I'm going into my I'm gonna send you, I'm just gonna forward you what I just sent to Maurice on the whole situation of brainwash. Okay, give me his email address and I will
send it up one more time. It's the voice 17104.
The voice, all one word, right?
Yeah, all one word. Chris, can you put that up again for us, brother?
Okay, the voice.
Yeah, the voice 17104. It was just .com. Yeah, there you go. At gmail.com. The voice 17104 at gmail.com.
Okay.
And this brother's really good. He can make it happen for you. Yeah.
Okay. I got the voice
17104. Yeah, 17104.
104. Okay.
Yeah, at gmail.
Okay.
.com.
Okay, it's on its way.
Excellent.
Yep, I got it right here.
Okay.
I'm just gonna put FYI. That's me, Chris. I guess it's Chris that I'm sending it to, correct?
Yes, it's sent it to brother Chris Thomas, Reverend Chris Thomas.
And it's in MP3 form, so it's coming right your way. It should be on its way now.
Okay, great. Excellent. Yeah, because I want to hear it myself. This sounds good. Now, the other thing is with Dr. Henderson. Yeah, go ahead, bro.
No, Nate. So Nate, so I want you to explain to Andre, what does the Imani Church mean?
Imani is a Swahili word that means faith. And so our church was founded on the principles of both, of course, Christ and what Christianity stands for, but also on the principles of Kwanzaa and the Nguzo Saba. And also my wife put together a wonderful resource of African-American traditions, sayings, and all that. And so we use that as part of our text as well. For the longest time, we still do. But we are first and foremost a Christian church. We are Africans who believe that Christianity started way before the European claimed it. And so this is what we're about. And we come on every Sundays on Facebook Live from 11 to about 12:30 usually. It's about an hour and a half, broadcast, but we do a lot of things in the community. So our church is more concerned about being an active community, activist church. We do free family programs. We do a pre-Kwanzaa program that's second to none. We just did a poetry and pastry program. We just simply had poets come in, giant food, brought all the pastries. We're ready to do a big thing for youth. We just took 15 young people up to the NAACP AXO competition in Boston, along with the NAACP AXO, group. We've been working with them for years. Brother Calvin Brunson is the director of that. And we have a sister that is just out of sight. She's a graduate of Howard University. She's our events planner. And she just came on board about a good year ago. Her name is Nicole Wilkerson, and she's serious. And so we have a lot of good stuff going, man. We get ready to do something at the Forum with some young people. But everything we do, you'll see it says Life Esteem Ministries and the Writers Wordshop. So we work, my wife that created Life Esteem Ministries, that's where Monty Church comes from. And then Writers Wordshop, we created some 46 years ago. And we've been doing something every week for 46 years. So that's kind of what we are.
Okay, hold on. Wait, did you say how many years ago?
We started in 1977. Right?
Oh, wow.
And we haven't missed a week. We've done something every single week since 1977. Yeah.
And so the reason why I'm asking is because so a lot of us, we've come and gone. So Andre was a national judge for the NAACP AXO.
Excellent. Fantastic. Yeah. Well, listen, fantastic. I revere that organization and the work they do and the quality of people that they bring in. So if you were a judge, I know you know your stuff, brother. And thank you for pouring into our youth. I think that's a well machine. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I appreciate the passion.
So Andre, he comes along with Kamika Williams around that same time.
Yeah.
So can I ask Andre, what does conscious mind mean?
Conscious minds pretty much means going into your subconscious, lining it up with your current conscious, and understanding your primordial conscience.
All right.
Meaning all of them are part of the universe. We all are, related and connected and associated to Mother Nature, Mother Earth, the universe, and we're all as one with everything because we're created from all visible and invisible nature. People don't realize that supernatural and natural nature.
Oh,
Your eyes you got from the sun, your flesh you got from the dirt in the ground. The soul is like the clouds, light and airy. You don't know where it's coming from. You don't know where it's going, but you see a cloud for 1 minute, then it's gone, but it's gone somewhere else. That's like our souls. Our spirits come from the wind. You can see the wind blowing in the leaves, but you don't know where it's coming from. You don't know where it's going. That's how our spirit was gotten from, plus the angels are the Elyanim that fly throughout the universe. Of course, you got our bones from the stones of the earth. You got our hair and our veins from the grass of the earth, our blood from the dew of the earth or the water of the earth, because 60% of our bodies is water. We got a lot of the things. We're visible and invisible nature. We're modern and we're primordial. We're ethereal and we're tangible. We're mystical and we're modern. We're half and half of everything that Yahweh the Most High created. And that's what that's what I'm on. That's the journey I've been on for the last 30 years, understanding my relationship with the Yahweh the Most High, as well as the creation that he made us in his likeness and image. But we are all that you see. Everything you look around, we're part of everything.
Amen. Amen. I like that. And by the way, even the Bible says, listen, this life that we live is like vapor. It is like vapor. And everything you described, I believe that God used every single element, as you said, to create us. And we are that. Yes, indeed. I love it.
We are that. And see, that's why we got to be able to, since the ancient ones, they lived long because they didn't need medicine. They didn't need none of that stuff that the modern pharmaceutical companies has dropped on mankind, because they understood the earth. They plugged themselves into the earth. When Yeshua, that's his real name. That's the name his mama named. They didn't name him no Jesus, but not to get on that point. But when Yeshua left his people and he went to the mountains, he would plug into the earth. He would plug his feet, take his shoes off, and recharge his battery, because we're electrons, we're neutrons, we're protons, we're all the electrical parts like you would do to ground your house into the ground and to get that house grounded by the electricity of the earth. We are the same part of that. That's what Yeshua used to do when he said, I'm going to the mountains to be with Abba, because I need to recharge. I done let out a lot of energy, healing y'all, doing what I got to do to, get the blind right, get the lame right. Now I got to go recharge my batteries. We the same way. That's why I tell people grounding and earthing is one of the best things you could do just to heal your body, because now your body is being charged with the electricity that your neutrons, your protons, and all the electrons and all that needs, because we're part of the universe and we need that. And that's how those individuals live to be 969 years like Methuselah, 365 like Enoch. You look at all of the ancients, they understood that they had to keep themselves plugged into the Mother Earth, Mother Nature, and the universe, because we come from all that. We're part and parcel of all that.
That's beautiful, man. So, yeah, okay. Some teaching going up here. I like it. Yeah. That's good. So
right. So Nate, the scariest things I've ever seen, when you start showing me my tapes and performance, I had to go look back at those tapes. It was a process for me to reveal, the work that it is that I've done, and for you to show that to me was thankful. But I tell everybody, when I went to the museum, Dre, they showed us every element that what the slave masters did to us. It was the scariest thing that I've ever seen before in my life. I have never seen that type of apparatus. Never before. And then I was on stage. I had to look down.
You're talking about the brother by the name, by the way, Dobbs is his name, brother Michael Dobbs, and his wife Ruby.
Yeah.
Michael, what he's talking about, Michael went around and found, slave memorabilia, if you want to call it that. And he's a collector, man, and he put this thing together, and he gives a fantastic presentation on what that stuff really was used for and what it did to us. And
man,
the brother needs to be discovered even more. And then they brought a brother in here named Harry Jones, and you talking about a historian, man. This brother, he had a Civil War, African American Civil War Museum in DC, I believe it is. And he died like at the age of, I think he's like 58 or something like that. He was just at the height of his teaching and doing, and all of a sudden, man, he was out of here. But the brother left a legacy, and we need to make sure that legacy doesn't die. But in Harrisburg, what brother Dr. Henderson's talking about is this brother by the name of Michael Dobbs. And you may want to sit down with that brother someday. We need to get him on. He's a great dude, and he's hard to kind of corral, but we're going to get him on here so he can continue doing that work. But you have to see it to understand what Dr. Henderson's talking about. It is powerful, man. It's like, what? I mean, yeah, this is what we went through. And so anyhow, let's transition though, because I promised the folks that are coming on that we would talk about what happened in Montgomery, Alabama, and the impact that it's having all over social media right now. So Dr. Henderson, I'm gonna turn it to you, because you were the one that kind of gave me the idea, and you called me, and I appreciate that. So what were you thinking when you talked about, let's examine that tonight?
Right. So what I have learned from a minister, there are a lot of times when situations occur, we don't have to be there. And so the current time, they speak over houses. And then I learned about premodoro. And now I'm looking at archiepilectic thinking. And it says that towards comparative methodologies and disciplinary formation. And I had to look at it. And then, so ever since I had to deal with self-help, I had to ask myself, what happens to a man or a people or a place when things go awry, when things go astray. And then as I was on tour last year during Juneteenth, my soul got lost. I had to find out where I was and where I was hurt. And then, the pastoral team said, I crossed over, I passed over, and I went into an overflow and asked me about speaking to spirit. And then I had to watch with my brother Gadsden show me about speaking to spirit. And I know all along I had that ability. So it's like every time I go to Harrisburg, it's difficult because I've learned how to transcend. And everybody that goes to Harrisburg, we don't come back the same. And then so when I had to look at what happened in Montgomery, Alabama, the situation was that there was an infusion by Trump, racism, and then a lot of black folks didn't know how to fight. They didn't know that they were at war. No one told anybody to stand down at all. No one prayed at all. No one spoke to the spirit because the thought was, let's fight. Let's kill somebody. Hurt people. And then so that's not our goal. Sometimes you can be intimidated, you can be triggered, you can be triggered, you can be aroused. And then so violence is a transformation. About once it starts, it's infectious. And then, so I learned about activism. And then sometimes we can incite a riot or we can stop a riot. Or we can give people hope, joy, peace, and happiness. And then, so that's why I asked Andre, what is conscious mind? What is Imani? And how do we move from here? And then as an agenda. And so when I spoke nationally, they explained to me about restorative justice and then chief leadership officer. I'm trying to learn what it is. Penn says environmental humanities and injury science. We have to learn, we have to be stewards, we have to practice reasonable service. Faith without works is dead. And I'm in a place I'm trying to perfect faith.
Let me jump in there for a second, brother. Yeah. One of the things that struck me, and I think you're leaning towards that, this brother was an official in that area. He wasn't someone who was just walking by and decided to tell them to move the boat. That was his job. This brother was doing his job, and they took homage and great joy in jumping on his brother and beating him down. And it turns out they were a family. It's a family of folks. And this black man was leaped on, beaten up. But the beauty of it all is that the passerbys, I saw one brother's up on top of the ledge or whatever, watching. He immediately came down and started running, to try to help this man. And he didn't go down just swinging. He was just trying to get him up off of him. But then the image of that young man, and that was a young man swimming across. He was on that ferry boat or whatever they called it. He dove into the water and went to the rescue of his brother because he just had to. There was no one telling him to do it. He just did it. And he was drawn into helping this brother out, and he did. And then others said, wait a minute, and they came and running. We can't miss the symbolism of all that we always talk about what we don't do. And I have a meeting that we do every Friday morning. Bunch of good brothers get together and, we just kind of break bread and talk about what we can do in the community and what should be done. And I always caution brothers, say, instead of always talking about what is not there, let's talk about what is there. And one of the things we saw this time were black men standing up for each other. And they didn't know that brother. They weren't cousins, friends. They were just simply a community responding. I thought that was powerful. My sister Wendy, no cheer on you coming in. How you doing, sis? Good seeing
I'm
you.
doing great. Can you
All
hear
right.
me?
Hey, I can hear you. So glad you're
I'm
coming
doing
on.
great.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. We had Dr. Maurice Henderson on, and also brother. I'll say your name again. I'm sorry.
You can just call me Dre for short. Just call me Dre for short.
Dre, okay. And Dre's in North Carolina, right?
Yeah, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay, Carolina's in the house.
Yes, indeedy. Yes, indeedy. Hey, this is Wendy Notriani. Wendy's an excellent poet and community activist. So we're so glad that she's on tonight. She has her own show, by the way, on Monday nights.
Awesome.
Right here on the station as well.
It's
Wendy, we're
easy
just
to
kind of
both of us.
exploring the hat in the air and the brother responding, you know, the chair on the
Yes.
side of the hip and all that kind of good stuff.
Yes.
That's what we're
Yes,
talking about.
I've been listening. I've been
All right,
listening
all
and
right.
couldn't wait to get on.
All right,
Couldn't wait to get on.
fantastic. So anyhow, so let's talk about that a little bit, all the dynamics and what that means. But you know, for me, the response was uplifting. Now, listen, I'm not here to promote violence or to say I was glad there was a fight, nothing like that. But I was glad there was a rescue. I forget the phrase that Brother Henderson used when we were talking about this. You said a river resurrection. I think that's what you called it, right? Dr. Henderson?
No. So a lot of times they have words like take me to the river and say that the river will change. And then so there is the thing called a river sounding. And then, you know, so for me, my indifference in this conversation is that whenever you take into the water, there's certain things that it is that you need to do. And so not trying to read lips, but sometimes somebody could say, please don't do that, and speak to wonder. And then when the guy was swimming, what was his words? What was he saying when he was swimming? Was he coming to help or was he coming to fight? And then when you go into the water, that's a different kind of shifting. Now, if I'm in the water, I would say, you know, I'm here to help. Please stop. And I can pray myself out of the water. His body did not generate any idea but to fight. And then sometimes when you step into the spirit, you can shut certain things down. And violence, assault, that's temperamental. And then, you know, so if somebody was there to say, please stop, this is not necessary, it is not right. That's a shifting
the
of the
first
atmosphere.
brother, actually, if you watch my estimation now, this is my perception, and I watched this thing over and over. The first brother that came down off of the ledge that was viewing this thing, he came running. His whole thing was to try to get them up off of it. He didn't come down swinging. In fact, one of the guys took a swing at him right away, and he just kind of stepped aside and then, you know, went into the crowd. But they were ready to rumble with him, jumping on him. And notice that they were both men and women. They were throwing shots. And so when the young boy got up, he came in to help as well, as far as I was concerned. And then, hey, he just had to defend himself because they jumped on him as well.
I'm right. So words are power. And as he was on the other side looking down, he did not use his words as he was mounted to come down and to say some things. That was an infusion. And a lot of times words is power. And a lot of times if you incite certain things, it's infectious, it's contagious. And you know, and then, you know, so our question is, my question is, I have to say this, how you are security and you don't back up and take a security stance and you don't know how to fight. That's
so
how
Wendy, let me get you
though.
up in there. Go ahead, say something, Wendy. Mm-hmm.
He wasn't security. He was the co-captain of the boat. The gentleman that threw his hat up in the air was actually the co-captain of the boat. The young Caucasian boy that was with him, he was operating a private, smaller vessel, and first he brought the captain over. So the boat for 45 minutes, they were on the sound system saying, move the boat, move your boat, move the pontoon boat. So then the smaller boat brought the captain over for the captain to go and call the police. And if you watch, which I thought was really good, the press conference that the mayor and the police chief had. So the captain went over to call the police. The smaller boat went back and got the co-captain, which is the gentleman that threw his hat up in the air. So he wasn't just a security guard, he was the co-captain of the boat. And
right. Okay. All right. So I hear that. But Andre is a military guy, and he's also a basketball player. He's also a Q. He's also a father. So, and if you're a captain, it's parliamentary procedures, Robert Rules of Order. So what it is I'm saying, when you know that you've been intimidated, that cycle is you have to take a stance and then back up. I'm looking at as a man, you have to back up and then take a stand. He was knocked down too fast. Too fast.
Well, we had 5 people on it. He's been knocked down too, my brother. I'm sorry. That brother was fighting for his life. He didn't try to throw punches and everything. By the way, listen, where I work at UPMC. I watched the person come in, wrong as they could be, a man and a woman, and they jumped all up in the receptionist's face and this and that, and all they had to do was check in like everybody else, but it came in and got nasty. Excuse me. And so it got really ugly. Guess what? When the sister started defending herself and talking back and everything, UPMC looking at her as to whether or not she should keep her job. They didn't fire her, thank God, but it was really tense because everybody kept saying, well, and what could she have done differently? There's nothing she could have done differently. These people came in high. They were crazy. They were ready to punch her out. And she just had to stand up and say, no, you're not going to hit me. And so they get into all that. What I saw that brother was he tried his best. 45 minutes. I didn't even know that, Wendy, that they took 45 minutes trying to get these people to move.
Yes.
And they wouldn't move.
45 minutes and they wouldn't move. There's a video where one of the people that were on the pontoon boat, he was waving his hands like, we see you, sort of like, oh, well. And they put the covers on everything on the boat, docked the boat, and went up to, wherever. So when that was when, and the police chief said the first phone call that they received was not a call of distress. It was basically the captain saying, hey, we're on the Harriet. We're supposed to be parking. There's a pontoon in the way. Can you send someone? So it wasn't an emergency. He didn't sound distressed. Then 10 minutes later, he said, or I think 17 minutes later, they started getting all sorts of calls. And that by that point, that was when the people on the boat had jumped on the co-captain. So for 45 minutes, right. So for 45 minutes, they had been asking them to move the boat. Then for another 17 minutes, they had been going back and forth with them to move the boat. But I want to say this. First, I want to say that I don't condone or celebrate or take joy in violence or in anyone getting hurt. Amen. But I said that to say I grew up in a household and a culture, and we talked about this Monday on Taft and I and Jason on our show. I grew up in a household where we were told if someone hits you, you hit them back.
Amen.
And there were a couple of times, and it only had to happen a couple of times, where one of us came running in the house because someone chased us in. And my father gave us a choice. You can deal with me, or you can go back out there and deal with them. Mm-hmm. So it was a very easy choice. A very easy choice. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I want to say that I think that one, out of frustration, we reacted, and I say we, because we reacted out of frustration. And I think had the tables have been turned, this is the first time in a long time that it's been one of us and a bunch of them, and there were no guns. There were no police to pull the guns. There was no one to tase us. There was nothing. And so now they have the upper hand, and they took the upper hand. It shouldn't have happened this way, but it did not start. It did not start with us as the aggressor.
I'm gonna get the
We
brother
did
from
finish.
North Carolina.
We were the finisher, though.
That's right. I want to get the brother from North Carolina, Brother Brian. Jump in there and let's hear your take on it, man. Brother, you still with us?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, Dre.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. What were you saying again,
No, I'm
brother?
just saying, we're just talking about this situation, in Montgomery, Alabama, the brawl on the pier. So what's your take on that whole thing?
It's funny. I like everybody's perspectives and all the background information. Mrs. Wendy, is that your name, man?
Wendy.
Yeah,
Wendy.
That she gave the background, because a lot of people didn't know all the particulars that the guy. So most people thought he's a security guard versus him being, like she said, a co-captain of the boat. See, so getting information first and foremost right, and the facts of the background of everything is the first process in which we need to have and a grasp on, as opposed to putting rumors out about he wasn't nothing but a security guard and blah blah blah. Nah, this guy was a captain of a ship. He was trying to protect his boat. And the brothers that came off from the boat, I think there was another bigger boat behind there, if I can recall correctly, correct? It reminded me of, okay, before we used to come off these boats in shackles and chains, but now we coming off these boats as free men ready to join the fight.
That's right.
And when you go to war, you need to have that analogy that, those brothers wasn't coming off with slave holders that were bringing them off them ships to enslave them and have them start working this land. They came off there ready to fight, like they was coming off the boat on Normandy Beach, like we get ready to get down. So I look at it from that. I look at it from that perspective. If you want to look at it from, looking at history and going back in the time zone or time warp and seeing that, it's good to see that we're coming off the boat now fighting and ready to take over and not taking no nonsense from nobody. Because sometimes you have to, there's a time for war, or as the ancient Hebrew word is, the word for war is milkama. The last word part of it, karma. That's where they get karma from. Milkama, that's the Hebrew word for war. Sometimes there's a time for war and there's a time for shalom or peace, but that time was a time for war. We wasn't in shackles to get into that war. We came off the beach storming the beach, came off the boat storming the beach. So that's my take.
I like it. Thank you.
Right. And so like at Penn, energy science is like, if you're a black man and you go into a hospital and you're harmed and you're on the journey, if you see a white police officer, you have been injured and hurt you. So yes, so I'm trying to get to this point. If Trump came to Montgomery and did a period of enlightenment, and their souls and their factory, he may have told them, the niggas did it. And that's what he said about in Atlanta, just the physical term. And so that's an insight. And when I look at Roots, after Roots, black people were coming out, bucking into white people for no reason whatsoever. And then so the reasoning and the reckoning about the behavior is something totally different. But I'm learning and I'm listening, and I'm trying to figure out. So Andre, I had not considered the thing about the boat.
Let me put a poetic piece up in here. This might be an appropriate time. Claude McKay had a piece called "If We Must Die." I remember back in the 60s and 70s, this became a sort of a rallying cry, this particular poem. And it goes like this. Claude McKay says, "If we must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and pinned in an inglorious spot, while round us bark the mad and hungry dogs, making their mock at our accursed lot. If we must die, oh, let us nobly die, so that our precious blood may not be shed in vain. Then even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us though dead. O kingsmen, we must meet the common foe. Though far outnumbered, let us show brave, and for their 1,000 blows deal one death blow. What though before us lies the open grave? Like men will face the murderous, cowardly pack, pressed to the wall, dying, but fighting back." I remember thinking, It's not that you condone violence. A lot of people begin to quote that as an anti-Martin Luther King stand, I thought, back in the day. And I thought, no, King, had a different way of fighting, but he fought. And he fought courageously as far as I'm concerned. He confronted the enemy. He did do exactly what, Brother Dre talked about. That is, he tried to get the facts. I do want to thank Wendy. I had not followed the press conference and all of that, but it's always important to know what the heck you're talking about. But at the same time, I also heard Wendy say that, and we all can relate to this, that, our parents told us that, you don't start a fight, but if you get hit, you fight back, period. By the way, you come running in that house, you got to either face me or you face them. I remember being up on Hamilton Street having that little roundabout with a guy, and it looked like the whole neighborhood came out to see us fight, like we were, Madison Square Garden or something. I'm like, yo, people crazy, you better stop this fool trying to kill me. But anyhow, it's one of those things. I was not happy to see the brawl. No one was. At the same time, I was happy to see the response. And that sounds kind of, hypocritical. But listen, that was so unfair. That was so crazy what was happening. Had we stood back and not responded, shame on us. That's not the kind of image we want to see out there. Not our young people don't need to see grown men stand back and take that crap. Again, they used to flog us in public, in order to send a message to us. You step out of line, this is going to happen to you. Well, guess what? It's 2023. Ain't happening like that anymore. And again, we're not going to celebrate violence, but we are going to celebrate people standing up for themselves. And I think that's my take on that. Yeah, go ahead, brother.
All right, and then brother, I hear you, but as your alpha brother, the words "if we must die" doesn't fly right in my heart and in my soul.
That you never been in war, have you?
What you say?
Did you serve in the military?
No, I didn't.
Neither did I. So I'm not trying to use the military center. But brother, if you were in the military and you were fighting, if you put that uniform on or whatever, then you got to fight back. And if you don't stand up for your family, if you don't stand up for your community, even Dr. King said, if you don't stand for something, then you fall for anything. Dr. King.
Well, Nate, can I add to that?
Mm-hmm.
So in the book of Esther, when Mordecai went to Esther and told Esther that she needed to go to the king, and at that time it was a law that said that you could not go to the king unless you had been sent for. And so Mordecai told Esther, but you have to go because you're people, and that's when he told her, he said, don't think that because you've come to the kingdom, because you're in the palace, that you will escape, persecution. Perhaps you've come to the kingdom for such a time as this. And so she got all of her people together and she said, if I perish, then I perish, which is the same thing. If I die, then I die. So it was on her. It was on her to go to the king. And because she could have been beheaded and she would have been killed on the spot. Just like, think about if you put that in today's time, she would have been killed on site.
All that noise. Please mute yourself. Go ahead, Wendy. Mm-hmm.
She would have been killed on site for going to the king, but because of her people, because Haman had it out and Haman had got the edict from the king that he could go and kill all of the Jews, then it was Mordecai that said to Esther, you have to go to the king and get the king's attention and tell him who you are and tell him that he can't kill your people or tell him what we need. And so this, I think, was the same thing. And if we put it in those terms, then perhaps those people showed up at the dock for such a time as this. We don't know. But like she said, if I perish, then I perish. I've never been in war. And Lord knows I'm not ready to go. I'm not ready to leave here. But there are some things that we have to be willing to say, whatever it is, I've got to stand for this. Yeah. And those people on that day made the decision that whatever it is, Because, what do they say? If you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for everything.
That's right. Yeah.
So this would have been the exact case of that. So she said, if I perish, I perish. Someone else, Claude said in the poem, if I die, then I die. That's what people are ready to do.
Yeah. Yeah. They shot Martin Luther King on the balcony of the Rainbow Hotel. He already knew it could happen, but he went anyhow. He went out there and he fought his way of fighting. Some people didn't appreciate that. They thought he had to jump bad and all. No, that's not the way he fought. He fought truth to power, and he confronted people that others were afraid to confront. But he did it, and he was the David to the Goliath of this country. I mean, the Goliath was apartheid. The Goliath was, discrimination. The Goliath was Jim Crow, all that stuff. He understood that. This 39-year-old man stood up to that Goliath. And he had a slingshot, and this slingshot was the Bible. And he took word, and then he bravely went forth with his lieutenants. He didn't have a whole army around him. He had a few men and a few women that were there with him on that balcony when that coward shot that bullet. But guess what? He was there ready. He was on his way marching out again, going somewhere to protest and to do what he did. How many of us have a tautology, but no real theology that takes us and it makes us, move. We got to be willing to move. And by the way, if we cling to this life, I think the Bible talks about this, that if we cling to this life, we're missing the whole point of the gospel, right? He says there's a better way. Of course,
it's war. The whole thing is war from the beginning to the end.
Go ahead, Jay.
The war, it's a war. We in a war. You look at the Old Testament, ain't nothing but war going on in there. From the kings, even Father Abraham, who had to slaughter all the kings in the valley, to slaughter the kings before he met Melchizedek and gave him a tenth of the spoils that he collected from the war. You look at Samson. He took a jawbone of a jackass and slew dozens of Philistines, and because he's a warrior, he met his objective that day. He didn't have to kill no more. He said, see, the difference between a soldier and a warrior. A soldier takes orders and is instructed to do whatever the commanding officers tell him to do. But a warrior is one that says, I'm gonna fight, but once I meet my objective, I'm gonna put my arms down, and I'm gonna carry myself on. Meaning, I'm gonna go to the next battle or war that the Most High has for me. And his last war was, Lord, give me strength one more time. I'm about to commit suicide. When I go down, I'm killing all these jokers when I pull these two pillars together.
That's right.
So he knew he was going to die. So he knew, technically speaking, he was committing suicide.
Yes.
But he said, before I'm going to die with honor, like you were saying. I'm going to go down, and I'm not going down like no punk. I'm going down letting these jokers know you're going to remember this day because it's going to be written in the annals of history.
And by the way, I love that, brother. Thank you for sharing that. By the way, it's the book called The Art of War. And I forget exactly the author's but in The Art of War, it says you try to hurt, destroy, stop as quickly as you possibly can. In other words, you're not just in there, you're there to stop the fight. The way you stop the fight is that you end the fight. Okay. So if you have to fight, first off, if you have to fight, and you do it to, hey, listen, if this is what you want, then boom, this is what we do. However, you're not just there to prolong it and jump around and no, I want this over. So you may have to go.
I mean, people don't get
theory. Go ahead,
I mean, I'm a ballad or a bullet kind of person, meaning I'm a war guy. If you want to go to war, I'm a peace guy. If you want to have peace, we'll pull out our olive branches and we'll go with that. I don't care which way we go, as long as we go somewhere, because if we have a contentious issue that we got to resolve, whether we do it peacefully or whether we do it with the actions of war, we have to be willing to have both sides of the coin on that. And see, because even if you look at Yahweh, the Most High, it says the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. Meaning, we got to be violent sometimes. No different than Yeshua when he ran the money changers out of the temple. He didn't come in there and ask him, can you please stop selling your turtle doves and your lambs and my father's? No, he had a whip and he bull whipped, and it said he drove them out of there. When you look at that word drove, it means he whipped them until he went and turned all their tables over and tell them, this is the house of the Most High, and you have turned it into a den of what? Thieves. See, so there's always righteous indignation and time for righteous violence, and he showed us that's a part of who he is.
Amen.
So
Yeah, folks don't want to deal with that, but that's the truth, you. That is the truth, you know. It is what it is. And
Dre,
so
you preaching tonight.
yeah. He nailed it.
Okay.
That's all right.
So, Nate, I have a question. My wondering is that the guy that came off the platform, and then the guy that swam in the water. My wondering is, if he says "speak my name," I don't see that happening as a spiritual warfare, and that's just me not seeing that happen. But I'm learning different things about what shall be revealed to me. And then I have to make it perfectly clear. In my life and being an alpha for 42 years, I've learned that white folks are not my equal. They're not my equal. And then also I learned that the sins of their fathers will fall squarely on their shoulders, and the greatness of mine shall fall squarely on mine. I think that we all know Fusus, Invictus, and the man that thinks he can.
So let me say this to you real quick, brother Maurice, but you're an alpha brother, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So one of the things that we all learn as alpha men, I'm an alpha man as well, been there for years. 70, I was made alpha in 72. So Invictus, out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloodied but unbowed. Beyond the space of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the master. I am the master of it. I am the son of my soul. But anyhow, it is. I messed up the last line, but that was drilled into us.
I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
I couldn't think of captain. Thank you, captain. And so that brother, the captain was out there trying to do his thing. Anyhow, but yeah. So we,
wrong.
listen.
You're wrong.
Say it again.
No, so like I'm saying, okay, so a long time, the Church of God in Christ, they believe in the Zulu, and sometimes when it happens, God strikes the earth, and He saves people as a miracle. I just did see that happening in Montgomery, Alabama. That's the only thing that it is I'm saying. And so I'm saying, even with Andre, he's like this public health aficionado. And then, so the whole idea, so what does public health mean to us? Is mind, body, and soul, wants, needs, and desires? I'm trying to figure out, so what does it mean? Because we have to be careful that this could be a spree of when folks say something to us, then we have to practice rational madness. And then so I think that so it's indecent exposure because they look for us to do this kind of behavior. And and then at Penn they call it a consumer behavior health. So and then they also call it cognitive neuroscience. So I want to just look at, what shall we do? Where shall we go after this?
Well, we do what we always done. We go back to church. We go back to we actually sat down at the table of reconciliation, all that. But at the time of the fight, listen, the Bible says be slow to anger. And I think people were trying their best, 45 minutes of trying to negotiate with these folks. When the brother was talking to them, he didn't throw a punch or anything. The guy came flying out of nowhere, threw a punch, and then the rest of them, they didn't come to get their friend off of him. They came and joined in the pummeling. So listen, here's how this thing works. Oh, I love you. I'm going to work with you. I'm going to sit down at the table, reconcile all that. But right now that you're throwing a punch at me, I'm going to have to whoop your behind to make you understand that you are wrong. And then after I whoop your behind, we can shake hands and become friends again. I think that's the way that goes, you know. Yep. And by the way, public health is when we both come to an understanding that this is stupid. But in the meantime, I'm not going to let you just keep throwing punches on me now. You know, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get your butt whooped. And then after that, we can talk about, okay, let's stop it now. I remember seeing a fight once. There's a guy, little guy, and he's a nice guy. We old now, we grown men. But I never forget, his brother was a big dude, and everybody was kind of afraid of his brother. And there was we were down there playing basketball at the Bow Street Playground. I'll never forget this sight. And there's a guy who is no longer with us. He was a great basketball player, but I never saw him, you know, and he didn't look like a guy that could fight anything like that. Somehow he gets into it with the little guy. And the little guy was one of these guys, he was too cool with that mouth. What? I'll get my brother. Guess who comes around the corner? His brother does, just by chance. And everybody's like, oh, now, you know. And so the brother comes in immediately, going to do this thing. And I got so the guy was like, whoa, who you talking to? No, yeah. Hey. And he'd start boxing this guy. And it was embarrassing because he just beat him up. But he was doing it in such a way, he was talking to him, and he never let the guy grab it. The guy grabbed him, maybe it would have been over. This guy was a master boxer, though. He could stick and move. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, brother. And at the end of that fight, they both shook hands. He's like, hey, man, he didn't know he was going to get his butt whooped in front of all those people. Yeah, you big, you bad. You came around in the wrongest reign. You didn't even ask your brother whether or not he was the one that was wrong. You just came and jumped into it. And then you got a lesson taught to you. And that's what this guy did. But guess what? It wasn't done because, oh, I hate you. It's done because you're coming in wrong. Those guys were wrong and they had to be taught, and they were taught. And, you know, now I'm not celebrating all that, but the fact of the matter is they ran into the wrong brothers, and the brothers put a whooping on them. And now, guess what? I'm sure that they learned something from that. And I don't care if they're black, white, or whatever side, because I've seen black folks do the same thing, come in as wrong as they can be, and then they find out, guess what? You are over your head, and now you get whooped, you know, in front of everybody. I don't care, you know, we throwing race in there because it was, you know, it was racially motivated, we thought, based on, you know, and for all of them to jump on him like that, that looked kind of, yeah. And then it's in Montgomery, Alabama, for God's sake. Say it again.
They said that they went as far as the FBI to see if they could charge them with a hate crime, with the racial, you know, with the racial crime, but it did not fit. But 4 warrants were issued.
Alabama. Yes, Montgomery.
It was right. So,
it's Montgomery, Alabama.
But the individuals, the 4 men that were arrested, well, the warrants were issued and they turned themselves in. I think as of yesterday, all 4 of them had turned themselves in. But they weren't from Montgomery, they were from Selma. So let's add a little bit of salt into the pot. They were from Selma.
Selma to Montgomery, right? To March. They marched all the way. Right. Hey, go ahead.
They marched. Come on, Cletus, you'll walk over here, but you're gonna limp back.
You know, we're making light of. Here's the thing, though. One of the reasons why we're talking about this, let's be honest, it's all over Facebook. There's all kinds of parodies going on, this and that. And I did see one person who, you know, really admire her and think she's doing a tremendous thing and in the community. And she spoke out and said, you know, kind of like enough is enough because we can take this thing too far. In fact, I don't know if you noticed, but yesterday there was a guy that had a chair and he beat this white guy down. They got into a big fight in a restaurant in Detroit. And it's like, wow, you know, and now you have people walking around with, you know, chairs on their hips like it's a gun, and other people throwing hats up in the air, and it's like a bat signal and all this kind of stuff. Well, that can be funny, but guess what? There's some dudes out there who are seeing this here and they're thinking, oh, we're going to get you. You know, there's going to be retaliation and all that kind of stuff. So we can be, you know, we can take it to the point where it becomes out of control, and we got to be careful about that. So I do want to say that, both as a pastor and as this human being, we got to be careful that we don't take this thing outside of the realm of where it should be. You know?
The public health piece, though, I like that whole thing that you brought up, that you guys brought up, because being that I'm in, that's my life. I've been in public health, and public health deals with a lot of different things. And we have to understand that a lot of things, like they're trying to say violence is now a public health issue, you know. Mental health is a part of that public health issue, because a lot of the people who decided to come after this guy out of nowhere, they have a mental health issue from the root to the fruit. They got that from their parents. They got that from being, like you said, racially motivated by not liking blacks. And if as soon as we decide that Trump can come in here and become a public health nuisance, because that's what he is, he's created a lot of these things that from the root to the fruit, you see them coming and starting to manifest themselves. And you should know them by what? The fruit that they bear. Well, that fruit doesn't go, that seed didn't go down in as no orange and come out as no apple. No, it went in as a racist seed, for whether it's from their family, their community, Trump, or whoever else, as a public health nuisance, and now it's manifested itself, and the fruit that is being born is something that didn't go in, because it takes 4 years for an apple seed to go in, and then 4 years later, you bear fruit off the tree. So that's the process. This has been a process for them to act like they did and become bad actors in that situation. It all, see, they don't want to say it was a crime or a racial crime because they don't want to go there, but actually in essence, it was a racial crime.
Absolutely, we know it was. Yeah, but it's
from the root to the fruit.
South. Yeah, it's the deep South, and once again, yeah, you're gonna have to really.
Okay. So can I ask a question?
Sure.
Right. So there's a campaign called Human Rights, Racial Healing and Transformation, Environmental Humanities, and Critical Race Theory, and Restorative Justice. So my question is so where we go from here? How can we use this conversation to make it a national banner? Y'all tell me what it is that you all want. I can ascend to that. Now, faith healing is, and so Columbia has this thing called spiritual narrative, and how you speak to a person is something totally different. So I hear you all. So I'm trying to concise minutes for an agenda.
So here's what I would suggest, brother. Yeah, I go back to Dr. King. I studied a lot of his work. He has 6 principles and 6 steps. And now we come to a point where there was tremendous violence in King's day. I mean, there were lynchings in 1999 that spread throughout this country. People don't want to talk about that. Of course, they burned down Tulsa and many, many, many other cities that people don't want to talk about. There was all kinds of violence done to our people. So Dr. King understood the context in which he was coming out of. He created 6 steps. And then he said, first he created 6 principles. And then he said, well, how do we, put these principles into action? And then he created 6 steps. And I'm not even going to try to sit there and go over them, have them, and work with them. But what I would say is we need to go back to those things because, Brother Drake already talked about them in a sense. Listen, those steps, the investigation, all the stuff that we have to do, being, well-rounded and well-grounded in the truth and all that, but still having that ability to fight back, Dr. King wasn't going to put up his fist and fight somebody. He was going to go right up to, they said that the president, what was his name, Johnson, hated King. He didn't want to he didn't want to talk to King because King was so direct and right on the issue. So he talked to Jose Williams. King understood that. Jose Williams would wear the suspenders and all that kind of stuff. Jose Williams came from the South, and he was seen as one of those guys who could kind of cajole and all that, but he was also about business. So the president looked at him and said, I'll talk to him. I really want to talk to King. But he had to have King. And why? Because King represented the people. King brought the agitation. King brought the truth. And he made, Johnson's skin crawl. That's how we have to be. We have to go back. We have to tell the truth. It's not going to be pretty because once someone's deeply invested in racism and hatred and all that kind of stuff, you can, say all kinds of things, do all kinds of things. And until you bow down to them, they're not going to hear anything. But once you confront them and not bow, not bend, not break, then all of a sudden they got a problem. And that's what you're seeing now. You're seeing some of these people, they said power concedes nothing without a fight. They're the ones fighting. We're fighting back. Keep that in mind. They're the ones fighting. We're fighting back. And we're fighting back from what we call a righteous indignation. We're bringing all of that we know from, the word of God, our spiritual side, whatever it is that brought us to where we are now. We're bringing all that into play. And we've always been bringing that into play. Sometimes we forget that we're bringing it into play and we fall asleep and we get back into selfish living. And next thing you know, boom, here they come. And so we just got to be clear about who we are, what we're called to do. But I do think that we need to study more of the principles and steps that Dr. King laid out for us, because the one thing he talks about is the beloved community, but but he also talked about truth, seeking the whole truth and nothing but the truth. We want to skirt around it. I do this thing. Wendy can testify that one of my alter ego is Denzel Washington. I tell her all the time. And I created this thing where I tell people to squint. I say, and I'll start off some speeches as well. I say, I want everybody to look directly at me. I want you to close your eyes as much as you can. Just squint. Let's make sure you can see me though, but squint as hard as you can. I said, now, as now, don't I look like Denzel Washington? And people just fall out laughing. They're like, oh no. And the one woman was like, no, you don't look like that. I mean, she was so vested in that. My point is, we a lot of times look at the truth like that. We want to squint. We want to make it something that it's not. It was in plain sight. We saw exactly what happened. Why are we having this discussion? Let's tell the truth about it, and then let's move on. And no one's condoning violence, but everyone's saying they were fighting back, and they were also trying to rescue this brother from getting a terrible beat down in the discussion. But it's not an end of discussion. Everybody should have the right to speak, talk, and express themselves. But to your point, brother Maurice, what should we do? We should now go back to the business of, now can we talk? Now can we have that conversation? Y'all didn't threw it out there, and now, okay, you see what happened. So let's cool this thing out, and let's make it right. But if they don't want to do that, ain't nothing you can do. All you can do is make sure that the fight ends. Y'all ain't gonna just beat up, but at the same time, let's move on.
Right. So my question was, there are times that I have erudite vocabulary. So I want to cite books, references from white folks to black folks. So I can cite Pavlov, Maslow, Freud, and Miranda rights. I can also cite Grand Cobbs, Naeem Akbar, Dr. Ben, and a lot of folks. But then, so I'm saying, so we have references that it is that we can look at. But I tell everybody, the Black Dog test was very important. So that was Thurgood Marshall, Martin Luther King, and John Hope Franklin, who was a sociologist. That's norm, values, and mores. And then so when we look at the template of what it is that we want to do, Plessy versus Ferguson. And then I know that Dorothy Counts had to face integration in Charlotte, North Carolina. And by the time she got to the building, she was so wet by spit that it's different. So the whole idea is that, are we back to Reconstruction? Where are we to turn the other cheek? And that kind of stuff. And then what shall we do? And what shall we tell our children about what happened? And then what shall we do in moving forward? In contention of theory, curriculum, everything that, of course, how is it that we shall move in this directive? And then biblically, how it is that when any child goes to Bible study, that they will know a lot of things. And then how do we cross-fertilize where we are in disciplines, and then what is it that we should do? And so if I ask for a stair hello?
That's a lot of questions, brother. I got you. That's good. I hear you. That's a lot of questions, though.
And then, so my question is, what shall we do in the next 30 days to make certain things happen?
Well, let me ask you this question, brother. Let me throw a question on you. So, brother, a dude walked into a church down in South Carolina, I think it was Charleston, and he sat in Bible study with a group of distinguished African-American seniors and listened to them. They prayed, they read the Bible a whole bit, and then he shot and killed 10 of them. Would have killed them all if he could have. So what do we do then?
Okay.
What do we tell our children then?
All right. So,
Or the
just let
young
me
man
talk.
that walked into the store in Buffalo, New York.
Here you go.
He was there the day before and sat and talked to them, and then went back the next day and killed 10. I believe it was 9 in Charleston and 10 in Buffalo.
Okay.
And he killed 10 of them in a store that is in the African American community. That people, that's the only grocery store they have within, for that community within miles. This is, these were people that were not they were exercising their rights, but they were not doing anything outside of their normal everyday practice.
That's right.
Right. So Dick Gregory told me, he says, Maurice, when you go into a room, look at the ether, the aesthetics, and the electromagnetism. So he says everything comes from energy. It comes from minerals, comes from clothing, guns, just a lot of things. So the idea that people can walk amongst us and then do something, and then their temperament. So when do you know that somebody's bipolar and schizophrenia? When do you know that they have been triggered? And then so the prophets can see something. And then so when do we see something? And then when do we understand something? So once upon a time, 30 years ago, Andre walked to my office. And anything that he's ever wanted, I got for him. 20 years ago, I met Nathaniel. I'm shocked and surprised that I can move in this arena and call brother just to ask. I'm just trying to figure out what it is that we can do next. And then, so one of the major things that I want to do, I want to get the conversation down narrative so I can hear the voices and understand what it is that I should learn. Typically, I always quote sources, as I did tonight, so I can research certain things.
Let me say this here, brother. One of the things we can, brother Dr. Henderson, you called me and you sparked this conversation. So one of the things that you did was you got us talking. So that's one thing we can do. We can't hide it, it's in plain sight. But now we have to have reasonable conversations about it. So I applaud you for having enough on your heart and in your vision to want to even have this conversation. And then to bring on, brother Drake, right? To bring him on and, his powerful voice. And then Sister Wendy, who took time to join us, even though she's driving to California, look like.
Oh, for real?
She's in her car. But,
no.
But she has.
I'm headed back to I'm ready to go to the Carolinas. That's where I'm going.
There you go.
No, I'm not, but I wish I was.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then, so Nate, I want to tell you. So American Studies is pioneered by Penn. And I was at Penn. They said to me, only 100,000 people died on slavery. And I had to stand up. I said, listen, I think that you all are trying to trigger me to see what can happen. I can't believe I'm having this kind of conversation with anybody with a insult that would demean me. So I'm going to leave this here room and cry. I've never heard this before in my life. And then when I left the room, I was outside, and then one of my mentees at Penn, he said, "What's wrong?" I said, "They harm me." And he said, "Listen, I'm canceled my training, and we're going inside." I said, "Please don't do this." So I've been in rooms with Klansmen, pinheads, KKKs that have rushed the stage. So they think that they can do that. But in the influence, No, and no, and the influence. I'm trying to find out where this comes from. And then my brother who did the film Black Wall Street, he said that it was their intent to massacre us. Wow, that's intentional. So when I hear you all speak, it's difficult for me. And then also, so you got to remember that this kind of stuff, people can hear voices, and it can be a trigger.
Dr.
So I'm
Morris,
listening and I'm learning.
how were you triggered when you heard that they were in Florida, but throughout the country, really, but in Florida, there are people who actually think that slavery was a good thing and that we learned from it. We learned skills from slavery. That's being banged around in 2023, July, August, quite frankly, of 2023. Can you imagine that? That there are people still trying to push that kind of narrative? Brother Dre, can you speak to that?
Brother.
That's your Brother Drake in here. Brother Drake, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, you got different people that come from different backgrounds that have different thoughts and opinions about what you just spoke about. But the bottom line is, if you're using your agenda to create division, you wrong all the way around.
Yeah.
See,
Amen.
And that's the problem when people start having these agendas, especially like DeSantis and all these people that are trying to take black books out of black schools. I mean, Omegas are getting ready to have a big convention down there in Tampa, and they're talking about taking our money from them and not going down there because this guy is hostile towards blacks, pretty much. The Kappas just had their big convention down in Tampa, and I would have done the same thing that they used to do in the 60s. No, we're going to do some, we're going to pull our money from y'all and force you to lose your sources of income and how your government is ran, because the tax base is where you get your dollars from. Yes. So we got to look at all these different things that if people coming up against what we're trying to do as black people that are trying to not allow revisionist history, because that's what he's doing.
Absolutely.
He's trying to revise history and trying to get people to buy into it. And most of the people he getting buy into it are white folks that voted for him. But for us that know the truth, that there wasn't 100,000 black slaves or people that died during slavery, we know there was probably more than that, probably 10 times more. But they want to change and revise our history so they can make white folks less guilty or not be on such a guilt trip for what they know their forefathers and their ancestors did to us. They don't want to hold responsibility, but guess what? There's some generations that have to take the responsibility for what their forefathers did. Okay?
Wow.
Or at least acknowledge it, but don't try to change it and lie about it.
That's right.
So that's my take on the whole thing. Since you guys brought the whole conversation up about, how DeSantis and Florida and how we still putting our money in a place like this. Yes. Like we're still going to have our grand conclave. We just had it here in Charlotte 2 years ago, or last summer, during this July of last summer, and now we're talking about going to Tampa. Now the conversation amongst Omegas was, should we go down there with this hostile environment with DeSantis talking stuff about black people and then wanting us to come in there and put money in his pocket so he could take the money that we put in there and use it against us?
That's right. Amen.
And
to
that's
that.
And that's my take on that whole piece, brother. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Okay. But then, so the professor from Harvard, he created and Carter, and he said slavery was not bad. Well, and he's on PBS, and he sold that to the white folks for $6 million. And then when I studied at Harvard had a class on adolescent self-destruction. I had to change that to youth aggression. I had to leave the room. So as we go to places and have these conversations about what it is that is going to us, it's different now. And a very polemic way. So my goal, one of my goals is to go to the Congressional Black Caucus and present an agenda. And go to Broadway. And then just look at all the places where we should go. So this is called a think tank, and then that's what it is that we should be assuming, to go towards. So now, Penn asked me, Black world influencers or thought leaders. This is where we are now.
Okay. But you know what, Wendy, go ahead, and then I'm gonna get to Wendy here.
Right. And then, so at any given day, I can just call up my brother and say, let's do this. I'm privileged to have this opportunity.
Okay. So, Sister Wendy, quick question for you. You were part of a program, a 2-year program through Messiah College. I know Thrive is part of the, tell us a little bit about that, and how did that conversation, that experience, play out, and what does it do for your thinking when you see this kind of stuff play out here just months later after you finish the program?
It was called Thriving Together, congregations coming together for social justice through Messiah University. There were, I believe in our group, there were 12 churches throughout the greater Harrisburg area. So there was AME Zion, there was Church of the Brethren, Presbyterian, Baptist, like you name it. It was from like all ages, races, socioeconomic, there was a group of us. And it was a 2-year program that we would come together probably quarterly, because we kind of started during COVID, so it was a little different. Yeah. But we would come together and we would read different books, and then we would break off into groups and discuss the books. And then at the end of the program, we went on a 6-day, 5-state, 7-city civil rights tour, a bus tour. So one of the things that did for me, and mind you, I'm from the South. I grew up in the North. I've lived all over the world, but my schooling, my exposure and everything has always been very diverse.
Excuse me a second. We have a lot of feedback. Can you mute yourself for a minute? Yeah, mute yourself for a minute.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
So what that did, and even in the light of this, it didn't change my perspective, because this is what I grew up with, but it did give me an appreciation for how we do things and the ability to explain to others how and why we do things. One example of that is we read Henry Louis Gates' The Black Church. Okay. We all read it, the whole group, we all read it. Yeah. And we discussed it. And so in discussing it, one thing in the group that I was in, there were maybe 6 of us, again, very diverse. One of the things that came out is, and it's definitely not say anything negative or derogatory to our counterparts, but they go to church, they attend church, they participate in church. We do church. Do you know what I'm saying? Yes, so what we go to church for, and how we are and what we do in church, that's why everything that we do in church, like we do church. I don't even know any other way to put it. With your whole body, with all of your senses, with every emotion, we do church, which is seen in our music, which is seen in our preaching, which is seen in our teaching and our praying, and we do church. And so what that program gave us an opportunity to do was to understand that amongst each other.
Right.
And to be able to share that with each other. And it's important. And especially at a time like this, it's important. And going on the civil rights tour was difficult. It was difficult because that's my history. And I feel like there are some things that are mine. Like I think Nate, we had this conversation, one of something else. There are some things that I feel are sacred and they belong to us. So native wear, that's mine. Drums, that's mine. That I appreciate that you appreciate it, but that's mine. So when we went on the civil rights tour, there were certain things that we saw, and it was amazing to me because I had not experienced it. But we went into one of the museums, and it was so overwhelming that there were some people, black and white, that could not go through. It was so, they had the mist coming, and you felt like you were on the boat. The whole wall was the water, and they shut you in, and you felt the water, the mist of the water and the sounds and people screaming and things like that. And there were people, black and white, that cried and could not go through and said, "Let me out.
Wow.
Let me out." And there were some of us that said, I'm ready for this. So that's where we are right now. To answer one of Dr. Henderson's questions is, that's where we are right now. We're in a juxtaposition of where there are some that can handle it and are ready, and there are some that cannot. And I don't think that's any different than where we were 400 years ago, or 500 years ago, or 50 years ago. There were some that were ready, and there were some that were not. And that's going to change from time to time. That's going to change. But we have to know who we are, where we came from, whose we are. First, we have to know whose we are, then know who we are, where we came from, and where do we want to go collectively. How do we want to do this collectively? Because if we don't do that, then the problem, we have a whole different problem.
Yeah, I think Harriet Tubman who freed the slaves, and she said that more of them would have been freed had they known they were slaves.
She said, "I freed 1,000 slaves. If had the other ones known, I'd freed a lot more if they'd have known that they were slaves." So they didn't think they were slaves.
Yeah, they weren't ready, as you said.
And if you want to go biblical, you could say the reason why them jokers had to go around the doggone mountain for 40 more years, because when they first initially went into the land of milk and honey, 10 of them were scared to death, and 2 of them came back with a good report and told them we are well and able and capable of taking them down. But because there was more that outweighed the 2, they ended up, Yahweh said, nah, y'all ain't ready. But it goes back to that whole conversation about some people are going to be ready. 2 out of the 10, 2 out of the 12 were ready. Or however many spies they took into the land of milk and honey to view that we're like grasshoppers in the sight of these giants. The fruit is bigger than us, darn it, probably, you know what I mean? And they were like, we can still overtake them because we got the spirit of the Most High in the ark that can go before and for us and take them down. Absolutely. And they still didn't believe with the power of the Most High in them as a pillar of fire by day and as a pillar of fire by night and as a cloud by day. They still didn't have faith enough. And the 2 that said we have a good report that we can do it, the other 10 said no, we can't, because them giants is way too big.
That's right. Amen.
So you still have that dilemma. You could go back, like you said, Sister Wendy, you can go back 400 years, but you can go back to the ancient of days. Before they even inherited the land of milk and honey, because they railed against the 2 that said we could do it. We got the power of the Most High right in this ark. We can kill all these giants off the land. But they wasn't believing in that. They didn't have faith. So if you had the power that was in an ark and you couldn't have enough faith that you could overtake somebody, what makes us think nowadays, when we don't have that power that was manifested to the children of Israel today, and the disbelief and the doubt and Thomas is that we got to deal with, that we can be ready and willing and able to take these giants? Because that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a different kind of giant now.
Dealing with a different kind of giant. I sat with a bunch of brothers today. We had a fantastic meeting, but the one brother kept saying, we need to do this. We need to, and in his in my estimation, his understanding that we ain't all ready, it just wasn't resonating with him. So to say that we're all going to just come together, no, some of them, remember that some of the biggest spies in the movement, the modern day civil rights movement, were us. We have brothers and sisters who were planted to come because they weren't ready. In fact, they was all about themselves. So it's like, well, you're going to set me free if I do this? And then sold everybody else. Werner Goodman, Cheney, just name them, sold them all out. Malcolm got sold out. They all got sold out. Why? But it was an inside job. The same thing with Marcus Garvey. It was the man closest to him. It sold him down the river. Come on. So this is what they do. So we ain't all ready, and we got to be careful about that. Saying they say that's how the Black Panthers was torn apart, because everybody became a Black Panther, but they didn't have an entry examination or assessment or whatever. Anybody came in, and guess what? FBI figured that out, and they just start sending cats in, destroy it from the inside. Tell us to tell. That's what they did. So we got to be careful about that. But anyhow, so having said that, let me say this. This has been a wonderful conversation tonight. Please don't go anywhere. I do want to say this. Brother Chris Thomas, who is the owner of The Voice, 17104 Harrisburg. Like I said, this is the platform that we come on every Friday night. And this is a wonderful platform. I hope that everyone that's on tonight will tell other people about it. We try to do this every Friday night, have a wonderful, robust conversation, also great poetry and readings of all types. We do have some things coming up. We have a wonderful opportunity with a sister by the name of Shantae James. She has a PhD and a law degree. She's a professor at Penn State Harrisburg and an author. And she has a couple of books out. And I do want to show a little clip of her. I asked Brother Chris to show 5 minutes, but you just see a little bit. We have a program called Life Esteem. She was our guest. And I take this kind of off the TV. I hope it comes to translate okay. But this is Dr. Shantae James. Let's hear a little bit of her, and then I'll tell you why we decided to.
Welcome again to Life Esteem. Always great to have you as a viewer to this program. We look forward to it every single time. Pat and I enjoy, this program. We want to thank WHP TV 21 for making it possible. And we always try to bring you fascinating guests, and today is no exception. We have with us Dr. Shantae James. She's both an author and a professor at Penn State Harrisburg, and an author of a few books here. Welcome, Dr. James.
Thank you so much for having me.
And you're one of those rare persons, you have a law degree and a PhD.
I do. So I've been in school since kindergarten.
And I believe it.
I believe that, most definitely.
Fantastic.
But what is your discipline in regard to? So my focus is criminal justice, but then I have offshoots of feminist theory and then just criminology in general. So I look at a lot of theory too.
Okay, all right. And having said that, you also have your own podcast.
I do. It's entitled Women and Justice. So the focus of the podcast, so typically most people, when they think of the podcast, they'll think just focusing on the criminal justice system itself. That's not true. We actually broaden out and look at just justice in general and where women fit. So we look at the road for women and just try to figure out ways to straighten it so it's better, which is really, really important to me.
So when you think about that, let's stay on that topic for a minute.
Okay.
There's so much going on in the news these days about justice in general and, the criminal justice system and all that. Women seem to be increasing in numbers, so tell us if we're wrong, in terms of their incarceration and, conviction rates of all kinds of different crimes. Is there an uptick, or is that just something that is just being more reported in the news?
I think there's a couple of things happening. The increase is there, but I think more research is being done to focus on that female offender, which is the first book that we put out. So the first book we put out is The History, Evolution, and the Current State of the Female Offender, Recommendations for Advancing the Field. So what was interesting to us is just to shine a light on the population just in general, and then talk about the resources that are available to the population. So one of the things that we realized as we were doing our research is that typically when a female offender goes into a correctional facility, she's coming in with some type of physical or mental abuse. So how do you address that? Another topic that came up for us was just this whole issue of shackling a female when she's giving birth. Just the policies associated with it, and then how do we address it to make sure that we're illuminating that marginalized voice.
Yeah, it's interesting you made that talking about the females. So many years ago, I was involved with the program for female offenders here in Harrisburg, and we used to go in and work with the women at the work release center and also at the prison as well. And it's amazing at the recidivism. Talk about that. I mean, is that still going on?
The recidivism is, but there's also resources available. But I question. And I often pause people to say, are we providing the resources resources that women need.
Right.
In the sense of when you are sentencing a female offender to a sentence, she's typically the priority caregiver for a family.
Right.
So if I'm sentencing this female offender, more than likely I'm also sentencing the children, which we would label that as the forgotten population.
Okay.
So in looking at that, there has to be resources to say, how are we addressing her, but then how are we addressing her children?
Right.
Well, we'll stop it right there. Thank you, Brother Chris. That's excellent. So, and the reason why I want to show that is we do a program every Sunday morning that comes on Sunday morning. Let's put it that way. We do 3 programs in a day when we tape, and then they, recycle those for a couple weeks there. And you can find that particular interview on my Facebook page. So just go to Nathaniel Gadsden, Facebook, Nathaniel Gadsden, and find it. And you can see the whole interview. It's about 30 minutes long. And she does a fantastic job of unpacking a lot of stuff. In November the 4th, we will have at Penn State, Harrisburg, a writer's retreat. And, it's going to be quite a thing. She set it up in conjunction with the Writers Workshop, and we're looking forward to doing that. We also have a retreat down at Elizabethtown College, and we're looking to do that monthly. We used to do it every other month, and now we're looking to do it monthly. And Jesse Waters, who's the executive director of that, Bowers Writers House at Elizabethtown College, and he also is connected to Westchester University. So yeah, he's making it possible for us, and we would love all of you who are serious about writing and addressing some of the topics we've talked about this evening to come and be a part of that experience. And so we'll tell you more about that in the weeks to come. But put November the 4th on your calendar, because we are definitely going to be at Penn State Harrisburg. And we're looking possibly to be associated with Elizabethtown College every first Saturday of the month to do our writers retreat. So we'll talk about that. And I'm going to check with people like Wendy and others to make sure that it fits our schedules. Whatever Saturday works best for us, we'll make that happen. And then we open it up to everybody. It's just a free and open, very productive time together. So we hope that you'll join in with us. Don't forget, we have Kwanzaa coming up, and we always do a pre-Kwanzaa celebration. That'll be the second Saturday in December. And we hope to have it up at Harrisburg High School again in their wonderful gymnasium. And that's always just an outstanding event. So we're looking forward to that. And there's so many other things coming up. We have some poetry venues. We're going to do a poetry an awards banquet in November the 14th. And then on the 15th, we'll be over at the State Museum. So that weekend is going to be the Writers Workshop weekend. We'll tell you more about that as well. And I just want to throw that out there real quick. And thank you, Brother Chris, for pulling that up. Dr. Henderson, again, thank you, man, for, reaching out tonight and bringing, our special guest, Brother Derek, on. And thank you, Wendy, for coming on as well. We do have about another 5 or 6 minutes. And so I just want to give you a heads up for that. Wendy, did you have something you could read tonight that might be apropos to what we've been discussing?
Absolutely. There was, you talked about the Facebook, all the things that have been, on Facebook and all the memes and things. And there's one that people are doing hashtag, I am not my ancestors. Mm-hmm. And so a friend of mine said she felt that saying I am not my ancestors is blasphemy. Mm-hmm. And so the conversation, people commented, and there was a young lady that said, in short, she said, our ancestors, this is what the young lady said, our ancestors used to be uneducated and got bullied. We aren't them at all. They were born in a world where a white man could rape his daughter brutally and he was scared to do anything about it. So she went on to say that they were, unfortunately, our ancestors, they were broken and submissive, and the few that did stand up didn't have help. Only other Black people telling them not to mess with them white folks and mind their business. So she said, we are not our ancestors, period. So that's not what I wanted to share with you. Yeah. I wanted to share with you my response.
Okay.
I said, perhaps the better statement would be I instead of we. And to that, I absolutely am my ancestors. I am a descendant of kings and queens. I speak several languages: English, Italian, Spanish, French, some Igbo, Pidgin, Caucasoid, the King's English, Nuck if you buck, and now Chair. I am a survivor and a daughter of the Most High God. I am a proud descendant of a people who were stolen from their land, where they had civilizations, kingdoms, and universities before their colonizers even knew what they were. My ancestors invented math and science. They are the original doctors. My people were stolen for the purposes of creating the same when those settlers neither had the wherewithal, strength, and or fortitude to do the same. The young man that jumped in the water in Montgomery must have channeled his ancestor spirits when they said, "I'll jump before I'll sit and allow this to happen." Those individuals that fought must have channeled Nat Turner when he revolted. Read Nat Turner's Revolt. It's better than any horror film on the big screen. I am my ancestors because I stand on the shoulders of some men and women who heroically gave their lives in the struggle and who honorably, intelligently, and unrelentlessly stood and spoke against the inhumane treatment of our people. I am my ancestors because one day, and it seems to be at hand, I will have to remind the next generation of who they are, whose they are, and the fact that we come from great minds and a mighty people. Some will agree, some will say I am not like them, and others prayerfully will see that we are more them now than they were then. We are more them now than they were then. There were doubters and naysayers then too. I just pray that we don't forget where we came from, that we find strength in who we are. If it weren't for our ancestors, there would be no us. A house cat today may not look like much, but we cannot say it is not a descendant of the lion or it is not feline like its ancestors. If you put a house cat in the right situation, creating a perfect storm, it will arch its back, it will get low to the ground, study its prey, and behave like its ancestors. There's a quote by Harriet Tubman that says, "I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves." I pray that we come together like they did in Montgomery, but on a different platform, using our votes, our voices, and our own veto power. I pray that we continue to channel the spirit of our ancestors. Some may feel like the house cat right now, not at all connected to or aware of their genetic ancestry. I pray they channel and become the kings and queens that we are. Unfortunately, even during our ancestors' times, there were those that said, "I am not like them." If we agree on that, then that actually does make you just like our ancestors, just not the ones we're proud of or the ones we honor and lift up and celebrate. I am, in fact, my ancestors, and pray that they are pleased with my representation of them and that they forgive those that deny them their due honor. I pray we never find ourselves at the bottom of a pile of angry racists. But if we do, I pray that the onlookers are people who believe we are our ancestors and that one of my ancestors will jump in the water and swim to my aid. And should I be a witness to such an atrocious and heinous act, may the ancestors well up in me and either teach me how to swim or allow me to walk on water. I am my ancestors, and prayerfully you are or will be too.
That's why you're one of my favorite poets. I love that piece. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was
Thank
absolutely
you.
appropriate.
That was beautiful. That was
Thank
beautiful.
you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Fantastic. By the way, we put out an anthology, and so I do want to say that we hope to have another anthology come out. It's been at least 2 years now since our last one, and it's time we get back to that. But that's the kind of writing and kind of spoken word that just propels me to continue to do this. That was absolutely excellent. So, Brother Drake, last words from you, my brother. Did you have anything that you want to say before we roll off tonight?
It's been a pleasure. It's been, I would say, grace. You guys graced me with your presence and unmerited favor, and I appreciate all the knowledge and information that I got from both of you, from everybody's university, because I look at people as universities, just like, you go to a college or a university, because we're exchanging information. And the key word is universe, because we are universes. And within our universe and within your universe, there's knowledge, there's wisdom, there's understanding that I couldn't get from a big university like Michigan State or Penn State University, because we exchange information between our universities. Because you're a universe, Wendy, and you're a universe, Nathaniel. And I appreciate the exchange of information between my university to yours and to hers and to Dr. Henderson's university. And I appreciate the information, and I'm grateful right now.
That's fantastic, man. Thank you. Well, brother, we gotta get you back on there more often, man. I like your perspective on things and the way you break it down. Dr. Henderson, I'll give you the last word tonight.
I believe he done dropped off, actually.
I don't think he's on there anymore.
Okay, real good. Well, we appreciate him for, bringing all of us together tonight, and the energy he brought and the questions and all that, and especially to Brother Drake. Thank you so much for coming on and at the urging of Dr. Henderson. And listen, folks, we do this every single Friday night from 7 until 9. We, are looking for serious, authors and writers and thinkers to come on. And I say that because one of the things that happened, I think Sister, what's her name, Ro Brady was hosting that night when we had some folks come on and just really acted a fool and, wanted to start cussing, and it took over the station and all that kind of stuff. And we corrected that. So we do kind of limit, in terms of who we give the information out to, because we want people to be serious. And you can watch this if you're just interested in kind of watching it. It's on Facebook Live. And then we, of course, archive it. So it's on there 24/7. So you can always watch it even beyond a Friday night. So, but if you're serious, you can always give me a call, 717-608-2312, 717-608-2312. And we'll, let you in and invite you in and welcome you in. We love when community comes together and uses this platform. So God bless you all. Thank you so much for tuning in, and hope to see you again next week or somewhere down the line. For all the members of the Writers Workshop, I say thank you and good night. See you all next time. Thank you, Brother Drake. All right. See you when